Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am Sid, this is my husband Mike, and we currently live in Southern California, but we just put our house on the market. The real estate agent came through here like a tornado, getting it all set up for showings and everything, and it's crunch time now for us. We need to figure out where we're going to live.
Yeah, when we don't live here anymore, where are we gonna live? So the first hurdle that we had to get over, which we have now gotten over, was the question of geography, right?
Right, and this is where we had a little bit of a struggle bus here because I was very much like, we need to just pick a state and we need to focus on that state and we just need to like go all in on it. And Mike was very much like really wanting to break it down a lot further and cast a wider net and really look at some further details, which I didn't think about at the time. Some things that I was like, oh, I just either it didn't occur to me or I just kind of assumed certain things. And he was really good about kind of breaking it down for us so that we could really cast a wider net and focus on certain areas of different states.
Yeah, what I was looking at was, being from the South myself, we knew that we wanted to move east, and we knew that we wanted to be southeast because, we took winters into consideration, and then we took hurricane weather into consideration, and then we don't want to be in the desert, we want to be inside the tree line, East Texas at least. And then, of course, staying off of the East Coast as well. So, in my mind, there was this big rectangle that was the geographical location, and I couldn't see any reason to pick a state because that whole region is so similar in so many ways.
And he brought on a good point. He did say like that really limits us if we can't find something in that one area of that one state, and that's all that we're looking at, then that really limits us to maybe some potential dream properties and opportunities that we would just be kind of turning a blind eye to.
Right. And when you start looking at, you pick that region that's within kind of the climate zone that you're interested in, which is really what helped me get to that region, was the climate zone. What were our winters like, and our summers like, and our springs and our falls? What's our average rainfall? What's our first frost, last frost? All of that kind of helped me get to that. And then obviously not being anywhere near the west. Like, we're leaving the west, let's get as far away from the west as we can get without swimming in the Atlantic Ocean. Here we land now on this kind of wider net of the South.
Our next struggle bus / hurdle was deciding how we want to do this. Do we want to buy a piece of land and put a trailer on it and live on it while we build something? Do we want to find a fixer-upper that maybe has the perfect property, but it's going to need a lot of elbow grease to get it up and running? Or do we find something that's turnkey that happens to be on a decent piece of land as well? That's kind of the three things there that are sort of a little bit unknown right now.
Yeah, I mean,
which makes me nervous.
we haven't really solved for that. And
No.
and the reason we haven't solved for that partially is because, I still like the idea of that wide net. I want to compare options in all three categories and see, is this an amazing property that the house needs a little work? Okay, awesome. Is this an amazing house that the property, it doesn't have a pond, we need to dig a pond? I really want to look at options that are all kind of within the realm of what we would be okay with.
Right.
And then start comparing them to each other. And
Right.
we haven't solved that yet.
We have not. And we did basically the same thing that we did when we were buying this property. Was we sort of made our wish list, our checklist of things that were definite must-haves for the property and
Right.
things that were negotiable.
Right. So with that in mind, then we say, okay, how are we going to narrow down those potential properties? And if we have such a wide net, we have to be able to narrow it down with local area considerations. And, we really want to be rural. We don't want to be in a city or even on the outskirts of a city. We want to be, close enough to a small town that has a grocery store, but we don't want to be in a city. With that comes the challenge of internet. We really have to have high-speed internet. It's an absolute must for us. I know Elon's got some solutions out there that some people are using. We need it immediately. We don't want to get on a list for something that might work. So that kind of narrowed down some of the rural areas that were otherwise absolutely beautiful. I mean, there were some areas of Arkansas that we've been looking at that are just a no-go because of that. that's
Right.
too bad.
See, and not, and it's not just because of the channel. Mike's job is remote, so he needs to be up and running right away. So this isn't just like, oh, well, you guys could upload your videos, in town or whatever. Like, yeah, I know we could, but he can't go work from a laptop at McDonald's parking lot for 9 hours a day.
Right.
So
I need reliable, high-speed
Yeah.
internet
right
all the
away.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is one of the factors that I think may end up deciding for us a little bit about whether or not we just buy an empty piece of land that has no infrastructure on it, because that's going to be a struggle bus. That's a hurdle.
That's at the top of the list of one of the challenges for that option.
Yeah, it is for sure. For our situation, that internet is a deal breaker because, Mike's got to be up and running right away. But something for you guys to consider if you're in the same boat as we are right now, if you're going to be looking for employment when you move or as you're moving, that is definitely something to consider. How
Right.
far away are you from a town that has employment opportunities,
Right.
or what kind of business or job are you going to be doing? So that's something to consider.
Other local area things that we're taking into consideration are crime rate. Right away, that's ruling out, being too close to big cities like Memphis or Birmingham or Atlanta or Dallas or Little Rock. We don't want to be in an area that's just rampant with, a lot of crime. We also are looking at, what's the unemployment rate in certain areas? What are the schools like in certain areas? We recently looked at a couple of properties in Tennessee that had some decent schools. We looked at a property in Arkansas that was beautiful, but terrible schools.
School.
We looked at a property recently in Mississippi that actually had some really good schools. Interestingly enough, I recently found out in this search that Mississippi is doing a hard push to get fiber internet out to all of the rural areas.
Yeah, which is super interesting. Like and it's weird too, because you can't just look at the whole state and say, oh, well, they're ranked at this number.
Right.
For the schools across the U.S. You really do have to look at what's your neighborhood school, what's your county, what's your district.
Right.
You really have to look at it. I mean, obviously, if you don't have kids that are school aged, it's a non sequitur. It doesn't matter.
But even with crime, if you're looking at Tennessee and you're looking at crime rate, Tennessee's a little high on the list, but that's almost predominantly because of Memphis.
Right.
When you get into East Tennessee and you start looking at local areas, the crime rates are considerably lower, like lower than the national average. So really look at your local areas and not just the state's statistics. So the other major factor to consider here for us, maybe even the most important, if I'm being honest, is the property. What does that property look like, right?
Right. We're hoping that we can find something with a minimum of like 15 acres. We'd like to find something more like 20. More would be great, but we're just...
I don't want to go under 15 acres. I really don't.
Yeah, and it's hard because we're, just so far what we found, we're having kind of a struggle finding anything with more acreage that is a possibility, either price-wise or house-wise.
And the unfortunate thing is, a lot of people are saying, move to Texas. Everybody moved to Texas. Well,
everybody already did.
California already moved to Texas. In Texas, there's some beautiful properties in East Texas, that meet all the other criteria, but they're smaller. They're like 6-7 acre properties. And this is part of why that wide net's so important, because, there's properties in Alabama that are huge, that are beautiful. Maybe the house needs a little work, but they're beautiful, big plantation style properties. Same thing in Mississippi. Seen some in Georgia that are like that.
Yeah.
Tennessee, I've seen a couple of really wild properties, 25 acres of woodlands with a few acres cleared that are beautiful, that have some potential.
Or the house is literally in the middle. I've seen that too, where the house is literally in the middle of thick woods, and I'm just like, ew, that's a little intense.
Oklahoma, I haven't found a lot of rural Oklahoma. Not in my opinion of rural.
Right.
All of it's rural compared to what a lot of people from California would think. A lot of Oklahoma that I'm finding, it's not too far to Walmart from anywhere.
And surprisingly, even with that said, I'm having a hard time finding good internet out there. That is a struggle. So,
and Arkansas is a bummer. I'm quickly ruling out Arkansas. So beautiful.
It is.
The properties are amazing. Beautiful log cabin homes on a lot of acreage with water, streams running through no internet.
Yeah.
Forget about it. Other things to consider about the property for us, and it's gonna be different for everybody, but hopefully we're giving you some ideas if you're thinking about doing something similar. We would really like to have water on the property. That's another thing that's important to me. I realize that where we're going, there's a lot of rain out here where we live right now. There's between 10 and 14, inches of rain a year. Where we're going, it's closer to 50. But I want to have a pond. I want to have a stream or a creek or a lake, depending on how big the property is.
Right.
Be nice if there are fish in that pond, so Frankie and I can go down and cast a line. But more importantly, water for animals. That's
Right.
really crucial. Is having water on the property. And then, you know, Sid really likes animals. So what would you like to see on the property for animals if we could?
Well, it would be nice if it was maybe fenced and cross-fenced at least to some degree already.
Right.
You know, maybe some structures potentially already there, like maybe a little chicken coop, or at least something to kind of get us started.
Maybe a barn.
A barn, something like that would be nice. It's not a deal breaker if it's not there, but that definitely would bring us to our first project, I think.
And for me, a metal shop on the property, you know, those are really common throughout the South, potentially building an office out there. If that shop had a bathroom in it already,
That
or
would be
even
nice.
a small apartment, that would be a huge
be
plus. But
so huge.
I think just having some additional structures on the property,
Yeah.
having water on the property, and then how the property is made up as far as
Yeah, how's
pasture,
it laid out? Like, yeah, how much is wooded?
woods.
How much is pasture? Is there any shade in the pasture?
Right.
Is it because sometimes, you know, you look at some of these properties where everything's very, very flat and completely cleared, and there's no shade for your livestock, and
Right.
it gets hot. They
Right.
need places to go and lay and be cool and whatever, and you don't want to just have, you know, 100 acres of cleared pasture with no trees in sight.
Right. I want to have a percentage of pasture land established. I don't really want to have to try to establish pasture land. That takes years. Having woods is kind of important to me. I don't know that that it's a deal breaker. I really would like to hunt. Frankie would like to hunt on the property.
I think again that's going to come down to like how is the property laid out, like,
Right.
and that's going to be so individualized. These are just things that we're looking for and hoping to find all
Right.
in one.
Right.
It would be nice too, especially moving to that area, if there's some kind of maybe either storm shelter or a storm
Right.
root cellar or something like
That's
that.
kind of
would be
tornado
nice.
area
yeah,
back there.
like
Yeah.
you know, I mean, earthquakes don't scare me, but tornadoes, I'm a little like, ooh, hey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. These are all things that we're putting down on paper, making a list so that we can help kind of narrow it down. I mean, it is crunch. Our house is on the market. We've had people viewing our
Actively
house.
showing.
We have interest in
Yes.
our house. We have to get serious about figuring out where we're going. And maybe this wide net that I cast was problematic in that it's slowing down, narrowing down a place.
Yeah.
But I think that it's going to work out, and we're going to find the right place for us. Now, don't forget to look at the individual states' politics as well. You know, that's one of the things we're looking at. Obviously, in the area and the region that we're moving to, all the politics are relatively similar if you stay outside of the major cities. And they are very different from the state we're leaving, which is why we're leaving it.
Not the only reason, but one of the reasons.
You want to look at some things that you may or may not have not considered yet, like the state taxes versus state income tax, the local area taxes. You know, these are all things that are going to affect your quality of life and your cost of living. Like, for instance, I have discovered as we've started this search that property taxes in the state of Texas are twice as high as the property taxes in the state of California. Now, don't let that scare you, because the value of properties in Texas is more realistic and the value of properties in California is extremely inflated. So a buddy of mine, Ronnie, who lives in Texas, was like, yo, brother, you know, you're paying 0.78 on a property that's valued at this, and I'm paying, like, I think it's like 1.4 or something like that on a property that's valued at this. I'm still paying less taxes than you. So keep that in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that, like in Texas, there's no state income tax. So it washes out.
And then there's also states where, I believe Tennessee is also one of those, where after the age of 65, you don't pay property tax anymore.
Right.
So there's little things like that that are kind of like, you know, just kind of check out your, you know, those states, those regions, those counties. What are some of their rules, regulations, laws, taxes?
And if you're a veteran, specifically Google state taxes or property taxes for veterans in whatever states you're looking at, because a lot of those states have, depending on your level of disability, decreases in your tax burden. So look into that. And then some states have agricultural exemptions for certain things. So these are all things, I mean, you know, we're just brushing the surface, looking at just the states that we're interested in right now. So we're not the authority that can give you advice, but those are things to look at.
So once we have a good offer here and we kind of know what we're going to be walking with,
Right.
from leaving here. That's going to give us the opportunity to kind of compare prices in some of these different regions that we're looking at and
Right.
see, what's going to give us the most bang for our buck. And that's going to kind of make our
Yeah,
decision
we can pull
for
those
us.
specific properties up now that that we've selected that are checking some boxes, and we can start comparing. How many boxes does this one check versus how many
Right.
boxes does this one check, and what's the price? And
Right.
at that point, just make a good financial decision for where your money goes the farthest.
Exactly. Thanks, guys. I hope you found some of this information useful or helpful, and make sure you guys are following along with us on this journey of getting out of California and picking a state to live in.
Yeah, we're going to be sharing information all along this journey as we make each step, as we get this place sold, as we figure out where we're moving to, making the move. And then sharing that place with you. So yeah, I hope you guys stay along for the ride with us.